Okay. Thank you, Chris. Good evening. Can you hear me? I hadn't tested my microphone yet.
This is Will. I'm trying to host
Ah,
the meeting for the first time here. So
okay.
Courtney gave me the magic wand. So
It's good to learn, and it's not that hard. You might screw up or something if everybody comes on, but what my problem was, because there's another one that I host. Sometimes I hit the wrong button thinking I'm muting all, and then my whole screen disappears. It's like, get out of everything. You just mute everybody. But so I've done a lot of funny things, but you know, we're all understanding and patient. So
yeah, what the heck, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Why not?
So how are you doing? How's the harbor and the dredging?
It's good. Good. They're wrapping it all up, you know?
I know.
They're getting ready. They just paid their fuel bill. We're sending that in right now. So it's come along pretty good.
Good. It seems
Yeah.
it's good news in these times, you know. It's nice to see that things are getting done. You know?
Definitely. Definitely. And then we got, you know, all kinds of dock work going on and
Oh, really? That has started?
yeah, we're pulling out all the docks.
Yeah.
You know, trying to wrap it up for, you know, get ready for the piggybacking too, right?
Yeah.
And you know, get ready for winter.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
It's gonna come quick, so
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But
I don't know,
then
you know, we had one winter, and you were probably like 8 years old or 6 or something, or maybe older, but where we really didn't even have a winter. And I remember because I bought cross-country skis for a whole family, and it never snowed. Didn't snow once.
that yep, I hear you. I bought my kids all gaiters and everything, you know,
Yeah.
for their boots and all that, for the snowshoes, and we haven't had much good winter down here since. So, you know,
Good.
but we'll use them up north.
Yeah. Yeah. Sooner or
For sure.
later. Okay, we're all coming on. My notebook.
Yeah. And then I got to ask everyone to unmute, right?
You know, we're a small enough group that we can unmute, but if it gets where you start getting reverb, is it called reverb?
Yeah.
Then you mute everybody.
Okay.
Good evening. This is Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hey.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Skip.
Hi, Skip.
How are you,
Hello,
Janet?
Skip.
I'm well.
Did you hear the dredge today?
You know what? I went out about when it was just getting dark, and I swear I could hear it. And I live off Old County Road beyond Spring Valley Road, next to the old campground.
Yeah.
And I swear I could hear the dredging all the way over here.
I couldn't hear it. I'm about by the crow's flies of less than 3 miles. And I could hear it other places in the woods. But I
Yeah.
didn't hear it today.
This evening around 4:30 or 5 o'clock, it was pretty far out, and it didn't seem to be working at 5 o'clock. It was out even past the jetty. I think it was just parked out there, perhaps.
Oh, maybe it was waiting for the barge to come back.
What do we have? 11:16. Okay.
Okay. I think they're pretty much. I think they're pretty much sitting close to their 162,000 yards.
Ooh.
Great.
This is Nancy.
Nancy.
Hi. I just had one small thing that I wanted to bring up. I don't know under which agenda item I should do it. Just about preparing, kind of lesson learned from the incident earlier this fall, and then something for us to go forward with as we look at the second and third stages.
I would say bring it up under channel dredging or even under piggyback, unless you have a time constraint and have to sign off sooner.
Well, it would be great if I could go sooner.
Well, we could put that to a vote. This is a tough crowd, though. How about we can do it right after roll call and then before approval of minutes of meeting. Don't let me go past there. Don't let me forget.
Okay, well, thank you.
Sure.
I have early tides all week this week.
Did we have any, I actually had to go up Cape today. Did we have any unusual flooding? Because they were saying on the radio, you know, like Morrissey Boulevard's underwater and all that stuff. Did we have anything with the tides this morning or this afternoon?
No, nope. I mean, there's a couple of puddles, but not even like
Yeah.
what usually happens, like Burton Baker. Usually you'll get a big
Yeah, nothing.
influx there. Nope.
Good.
I didn't even everybody was talking about the wind, but I didn't hear anything last night.
Yeah, I didn't think we had a big storm. And I was watching the football game. I had it taped, and the pouring rain, and we didn't get pouring rain like that, did we?
I don't think so.
I don't think. Yeah.
In the middle of the night,
There
we
were
got
some
a bunch.
big puddles. What?
Yeah, in the middle of the night, like two o'clock in the morning, we were getting pretty well dumped on,
Tilted.
but it was quick. Yeah, it was quick. I was up scratching my poison ivy at that point in time. Yeah.
You take your kids on a walk?
Oh no, this is from me. I'm like cautious as could be when I'm with my kids. It's when I'm alone that I get in trouble. Doing yard work, you know.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
All over. Eh, what are you gonna do?
Oh wow, really? Yeah, you just.
Yeah, it's all over my arms because it was so warm on Wednesday
Yeah.
that I was wearing short sleeves, you know.
Yeah. Well, you got calamine lotion or baking soda or something else?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've been putting that on. Brianna dropped some off for me today at work.
Yeah. Actually, salt water would be good for it, right? Putting a little
Yes,
harbor
yes.
water on it.
salt water.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That helps.
So I just checked
Just
our
need to be
rain
more
gauge,
swimming.
0.31 inches.
Yeah. Pretty typical. So where is everybody?
Yeah, I don't know.
Looks like Joe's joining.
Okay. How can you tell?
Summer
There
wind
he
came
is.
up.
There he is, right there.
He just blew in.
Yeah.
How can you forget a face like mine?
So Joe, what does summer wind mean to you?
Well, it means peace, love, happiness in the middle of summer with a warm breeze and the bright sun out. What does it mean to you?
Yeah, I was wondering if it had any historical connection, like you used to vacation someplace named Summer Wind or something like that. Yeah, and that's nice.
I've been on a long time vacation here in Wellfleet.
Well, you're very lucky.
Summer wind every day in the summer. So we're waiting for a few people.
Yeah, we need one more for a quorum, although I suppose we could just confirm attendees. And then Nancy has something that she wanted to bring up, preferably early on, so that she can drop off the call. So let's go ahead and get started. For attendees, I'm seeing myself and Joe and Skip and Janet and Will and Nancy. Did I miss anyone?
Oh.
And Will is also our Zoom Meister tonight. He's running the Zoom meeting. And let's go ahead and get started, and let's accommodate Nancy's request to bring up an issue early in the meeting, again, because of the tide situation, an early tide, and then she can drop off. So
Thank you. So we have had, we've been trying to work with some of the grant holders about the incident that happened in October. And, the difficulty in assessing damage is that, you need negative tides in order to be able to go out and see the extent of the damage. And then you also need daylight. Oops. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Kurt.
That's Alfred. That's his phone number.
Yep.
So
Okay.
Nancy, you're frozen.
And then there's
Okay. Can you hear me though?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
fine.
Alfred, you're on.
Okay. So if you can hear me, I'm just going to keep going. I think it's because my computer was unplugged. I just plugged it in. But so the difficulty is, you run out of daylight, like our big tides. We're at the edge of daylight, and it's not always easy to see the damages. So, we've been doing our best working with the different grant holders and losses that they might have. But I think Johnny and I kind of sat down and talked after being out there again last Friday, trying to document what happened, and seeing perhaps even some new damage since then. And I think what we would like to do, and if we could put it in the, memorandum of agreement, that once a contract has been awarded, either with the Army Corps of Engineers or whoever is managing the project, which for the next two, it might be the town, and then the project manager from the actual dredge company, for example, Cashman, before the dredging begins, we should ask them to come on a site visit with us to understand just how tight the quarters are between the channel and live shellfish. And, if I just think, if we had thought to have, we did provide the maps, they got the maps, they got the aquaculture grants on their maps, they did their 3-1 slope, like on paper, everything looked good. When you're operating a huge piece of machinery, I just think it would have made a difference to notice just how close those two are, because it's not just the dredge operating, it is the tugboats, which I think has been the main issue, even in the second incident. So if we could have a site visit at a negative tide with the companies, the dredging company, and if there's a government entity involved, like the Army Corps, to do a site visit so they understand just how tight it is. And when we go to do area 2 and area 3, those aren't, well, area 2 is adjacent to a lot of wild shell fishing, and just to have a, and if they give us information like, oh, it's going to be impossible, then maybe we'll do a relay and try and get as much shellfish out of there as we can. And certainly when we go into area 3, Chipman's, there's another grant immediately adjacent to that. So it's just about, doing our best to give people all the information they need to do the best job they can. And there's no, criticism or blaming at all. I just, this is something that we're learning, and I think that we should bear it in mind as we move forward with 2 new projects.
I like your proactive idea, Nancy.
Thanks.
So with that said, study up on the negative tides starting around November 30, early December, because we're hoping we'll be awarding then. So,
Okay.
yeah, just so that we're prepared to.
We just went through the negatives for
Yeah.
for November. I don't know when we'll get them, but if it's Cashman, they certainly did go out there. I mean, I think what I would want to do is just meet with them again. But the payback dredging isn't going to go near. It doesn't seem like it's going to be near any real shellfish resources. Although I guess we should have them look over at the harbor master's shack during low tide if they're maneuvering around, to the east of the boat ramp. There is a wild shellfishing area.
Yeah, it sounds like the risk is not just where we're dredging, but the tugs.
That's right. Yep.
And are you getting an echo from me?
I'm not.
I'm not. Okay. Kurt, are you on? I thought I saw you.
I am.
Okay. Okay. Good. Thank you. And Alfred is on.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Great. Okay. So we'll follow up on that, on Nancy's suggestion. There you are, Kurt.
Thank you.
And then we'll move on the agenda, approval of the minutes, unless someone had anything else for this. Okay, move on to approval of the minutes.
Thank you very much.
From November 2nd. You're quite welcome.
I make a motion that we accept the meeting of the November 2nd, 2020 minutes as accepted.
So moved. Second.
I'm sorry, who second?
Kurt.
Kurt.
Kurt. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. And so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I came up with 5-0 as unless Kevin has joined us.
I'm here.
Okay. How'd you vote?
I voted pass it. Looks good.
All right, so 6-0. Next item is the action item list, and we just take a quick look at that. The updates, as always, are in red. And I did add one of the permit expiration dates that expires in August of 22. Again, just so we don't lose track of it. We get into the piggyback, we'll have to circle back on some of these and certainly make sure we are familiar with the permit conditions and order of conditions before we start. Does anyone have any other discussion or new items to add to the action item list? Okay, we'll move on to Army Corps permit, which includes the 408 review culminating in the permit for Area 1. So, Joe, if you could give us an update on that, please.
Sure. Our contracted engineering firm has been working with the Army Corps, completing their internal 408 review. They've had to review it with several federal agencies. And we received word at 2 o'clock this afternoon that the Army Corps has told the engineer that they expect all signatures to be on the required permit by the end of this week. So that's good news to move ahead, and it also is good news for the contractors who are going to be bidding, knowing that the town has the permit in hand. And that permit is not only for the piggyback area, but for all of Area 1.
That's
good
incredible.
news.
Congratulations. That's really fantastic news.
It is good news.
Yep.
Joe, whose signatures do you need? Do you want to say that so we can make sure everyone gets them? Is it all cash?
There's no signatures needed from us.
Okay,
That they're done by the Army Corps of Engineers from the various federal agencies that have to sign off. And they're going to have those sign-offs by the end of the week for the permit to issue, is what we were told today.
that's great.
That is good. Okay, move on to piggyback dredging. Status of RFP, it got posted on Wednesday, November 11th. 14-day period ends on the 25th, meaning that the bids are due at 2 p.m. at Town Hall on November the 25th. And immediately following that time and that submittal, they'll be opened. There is a pre-dredge or pre-bid meeting tomorrow that the bidders will attend. It's optional, it's not mandatory, but GEI tells us that there's been interest generated, and we certainly expect to get I'd say at least 3 bids.
Huh.
That's good news too, if you can get 3.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and possibly more.
Any questions about the RFP?
So I do. Who would be the ones to look at the proposals and review them and then choose the best bidder?
Well, it's a town administration function, I guess, and Joe, jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. Certainly if they want opinion and discussion, to assist, we would expect to look at them and render an opinion. But I think administratively it belongs with the TA. Joe, is that?
Like any contract that's to be awarded, it's the town administrator who's obligated to follow the necessary requirements. And that's what this schedule is about, with the posted dates for the submitting, for the questioning, and finally on the 30th for the opening of the bids and the award.
No, wait just a minute, Joe. The opening will be on the 25th.
Sorry, the 25th.
Yeah, the 30th is the target award.
The award is on the 30th, right?
Right.
Our engineer has been helpful in that GEI knows most, if not all, of the contractors who do dredging. For example, they look very favorably upon Cashman because of Cashman's record of dredging in the state with the Army Corps, GEI involved. So that carries a considerable amount of weight. The engineer has made positive comments to us about, Cashman and one other possible bidder who is asking questions. So hopefully Cashman will come in low because they're already here and they don't have to mobilize and the town doesn't have to pay for that mobilization. But we rely on the advice of the engineer and look at the bids, look at the amounts, and ultimately the town administrator oversees that and would make the decision.
So just to clarify, I want to make sure all of this goes smoothly. The bidder and the engineer, our engineer, will look over the specs or the quotes and then, who's going to go over all the numbers?
No,
The amount.
once the bidders submit their bids in writing,
Mm-hmm.
they are not involved in the process of evaluating the bids and awarding the contract. At that point, when the town administrator and the assistant town administrator open the bids, okay, then the discussion takes place with the town officials and GEI and us at the table.
All right.
And there'd be a discussion about that. Hopefully it's an easy decision because we're hoping the Cashman comes in considerably lower than anyone else.
Do they know they're supposed to do that?
Well, they expressed a strong interest
Yeah.
a while back in wanting to bid, you know, so one would think that, you know, if they're hungry enough for it, they would come in with a reasonable price.
Okay.
And
Good.
then procedurally on the 25th, Mike Travato will lead the opening of them. He has a little checklist because the bids are supposed to come with certain documents. And so as he opens them, he'll confirm that the document is here. You know, at least a cursory look, not necessarily a detailed look, but just to confirm that they've submitted the required documents.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm a little confused. The usual process is that the committee would look at the, look at the bids and then provide a recommendation to administration. Clearly, the town administrator is going to, award and sign the contract. And it's fine if the committee doesn't want to be involved, necessarily in the review process. This is kind of an unusual, I mean, obviously we've got some time constraints too. Given Nancy's concerns and some of the others, does it make sense to have the committee review the bids and at least make a recommendation to administration?
Well, Chris and I are going to be there. The rest of the members are welcome to be there if that's okay with the TA. We expect to have considerable input. As you know, our charge from the selectmen is to manage this operation. So given that charge, we expect to have considerable input.
And it is a matter of public record. So once the bids are opened and available, I would expect people on the committee to review it and provide comments and insight. I don't think there's anything that precludes that, particularly since it's a public opening.
Yeah, since the document is so significantly large, I mean, it's not a simple one-page type of contract.
Come on, it's only 275 pages.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a mile long, so there can be areas that if you don't have enough eyes on it,
Yeah.
and bringing up something that looks unusual. I mean, we know what Cashman has put out, but we've got other people and we may decide, oh, well, that looks pretty good, but we want to know why it's not, why it's pretty good or why it has some broken parts to it.
Yeah. I'm not aware of anything that would preclude us on this committee, everybody having a chance to review those documents. Joe, is that consistent with?
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
It's a public meeting. I mean, given the calendar and the amount of days we're operating with and the holiday, one avenue might be to, have any members of the committee be there and ask to review the documents at that time. And perhaps, Chris, you and I can approach the town administrator to talk about a process for that so that there's adequate time to examine them.
Yes, we certainly should do that. What I don't remember in the RFP is, obviously people are going to bring their bids in by 2 o'clock. I don't recall if they also asked for them electronically at that same time, which would be really convenient. But we'll follow up on with Mike Travato and come up with some way to distribute it and or make it accessible.
Good.
Yeah, I mentioned a process of being present, because if they were available electronically to the members of the committee, then, any deliberation would be in violation of the open meeting law. So
Yeah, I don't want to I don't think the committee needs to micromanage the process, but the usual process that I've been involved with an awful lot of bids is the committee taking a look at the responses, making a recommendation, scoring those bids, and at least providing some input, to administration. It's often the case that the committee's recommendation is then taken by the town administrator, forwarded to the Board of Selectmen for approval, and then the Board of Selectmen usually signs off and then awards, the contract and asks the town administrator to sign the contract. Right, Janet?
Yes.
now, one thing to consider in this process is the involvement of GEI, who does this for a living. So their presence is going to be a strong one, and their advice, I think, is going to be carefully listened to by us and by the town administrator.
I think you're exactly right there, because
Yeah.
GEI is somebody that's done business with us for quite a few years, decades. So they don't want to lose that business line that they've had. And I think that they're going to be very perspective on looking to make sure that whoever they recommend in terms of this particular bid is going to be a smart one. And they can certainly give us some consecutive reasons why that particular bidder is the one that you should choose.
Yeah, that's well said. And Chris and I have had conversations with the chief engineer about the dynamics of that process. And he's been fairly candid with us. So, we have a pretty high level of confidence in him to make good recommendations that are in our best interest.
Yeah, and I don't think it'll be all that controversial either. I agree with you, Joe. It'd be surprising if, Cashman doesn't come in with a particularly low bid given, the MOB-DEMOB situation. Again, I don't think it's going to be controversial, but I do think from a process standpoint, it probably makes sense, at least for the committee, to make a recommendation. And I would imagine that the committee would also, the fact that GEI is the consultant and involved in the process, it would be surprising to me if, any of the committee members had major objections, but you never know.
Yeah.
So just from a public standpoint, I think also too, and again, I'm not, it's not a control thing. I'm not speaking from a position of, managing or control or anything like that, but just usual process would be that the committee would take a look at the bids and make a recommendation.
Yeah, I understand and appreciate that, Kurt, but we're under a time constraint. That's not to suggest that we should shortchange a good process. I think in large part, that's what we're paying GEI for, to analyze them thoroughly, because that's what they do for a living. They're working for us to analyze them and to point out positives or negatives and make a recommendation. I'd also like to mention that when Chris and I have had discussions with the engineer about the process, he shared two possible scenarios that Cashman could be using. One is to come in quite low because they're already mobilized in here, which of course would be good for the town because we don't have to pay a mobilization fee. The other scenario is Cashman could conceivably work from a position of, well, we're here, and we know that's a strong factor with the town on the positive side, so we don't necessarily have to come in that low. The engineer told us that he has seen it go both ways in jobs. So while we're hopeful they'll come in low, you know, we should also be aware of that other scenario.
Yeah, it's one of the things that always bothered me about this whole process because, you know, from my perspective, they've got an incremental number of cubic yards that they're going to be excavating on, you know, if we had been able to, I don't know, maybe I don't know what there's a state process or, you know, how we got into this situation, but the easiest thing in the world would be to take an existing federal bid and say, we want to add a number of increments to that bid. And so you're getting the same cost per unit. You're just adding more units instead of a whole entire different process.
Well, along those lines, we anticipate the Cashman will not come in as low per cubic yard as they did in the channel because there are more challenges to dredge in the piggyback area. It's a shallower area. It's going to take more time to get the scow in and out. Not as deep as the channel.
Kurt, what you described is the true definition of piggyback. I mean, literally piggyback on the federal contract, but early on the Corps didn't have any appetite for that. They were pretty specific about keeping it separate. But that would be the preferred way.
Well, we are where we are. You know, I just hope we can, you know, keep things moving smoothly. Obviously, we've got time constraints, and I'm not trying to muck up the works at all. I'm just trying to put out some ideas, you know, around at least our, you know, sort of due diligence as far as, you know, representing for the town and for the public, you know, a relatively transparent process and making sure that we get the best deal.
Agreed. Yes. Yeah.
So has the GEI had looked at the actual contract that the Corps of Engineers had received from Cashman? In other words, does GEI see what the two contract look like? The one that we're going to be getting and the one that the Corps of Engineers put out? And that with GEI, do they have actually seen the Corps of Engineers so they can kind of compare?
The contracts
coming at us?
Yeah, the form of the contracts are different, meaning the way it's arranged. They certainly have looked at the abstract and the bids themselves, knowing what numbers they bid and the quantities they bid. But the form of the contract is different. The Army Corps uses theirs, and this one is based on an engineer council, which is used in the industry. So the bidders would be familiar with this contract, but the actual language does not mirror the Corps. It would cover the same items, but it's not identical language.
So what you're saying, Chris, maybe the boilerplate is different from the federal perspective versus us as a small town.
Well, it's different, but it covers the same things. I mean, obviously scope of work and then insurance requirements, indemnification, liability, items like that, but it doesn't, it's not a mirror image of the text.
And the OSHA responsibilities. Too.
Yeah. I mean, the requirements are in there to have a environmental safety plan, health and safety plan.
Liability.
Right. Insurance requirements, workers' comp, commercial liability.
I think we can reasonably anticipate that the bulk of the pages in a bid that is submitted is the usual technical jargon covering all of those areas. And our main focus would be, you know, toward the end, what they're proposing they're going to do and how much they're going to charge us. So once again, we've hired GEI to go through the bulk of that to make sure everything is in order.
So now the Corps of Engineers, as I believe, has been checking on the number of cubic yards that have been removed versus what Cashman is also keeping records of.
Yeah, they're going to do a final survey.
Would you, GEI, do the same for us?
Yes, there's a pre and a post, and GEI will do that. It's in their tasks, that, you know, as part of the proposal that we approved on October 5th.
Right.
That's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
How
Yes.
deep is it going to be with the overrun of a foot? How wide is it going to be for the slope? Those are the key figures, and then they come up with how much per yard.
Right. There are two things that, you know, I think are still out there. I'm not sure where they are exactly, but, you know, Nancy's raised some significant issues, you know, relative to language that, you know, maybe should be in the contract, or I don't know what kind of leverage we actually have. And so the specific things that she's requested tonight, I'm not sure they're actually in the language. They're not, certainly not in boilerplate in the way that she's described how we should approach this. So I think, you know, I think we want to do what she suggested, but I'm not sure it's in the language. So I just want to be careful about that. And the other thing would just be that, you know, to make sure that the timing will work relative to Cashman's on site now. I don't know how far along they are specifically with the work that they've done, but if they're going to sit, for example, let's just take a scenario where Cashman's done, you know, in a week or two or three, and you know, we can't really award a contract, and so they're sitting there for 2 or 3 weeks. What happens in that scenario?
I don't think that's realistic. We're being told that that Cashman is tying up loose ends, covering a few areas just to make sure that they have covered the areas they're supposed to. They've told us that then when the survey is done, it's about a 2-day operation to certify that they covered what they're supposed to cover to the proper depth. So I think that's unlikely.
And Will, you may have insight into this. I heard a few days ago that Cashman was expecting the Army Corps to come out and do their survey in the near term, which I took to mean within the next few days. So they are that close to their declaring completion.
Yes, they are.
Right, that's my concern. So if they complete within, you know, within a couple of days, and then they're just hanging out for, it's 2 to 3 weeks maybe before we could have an award, or 4.
No, we are on the accelerated track. We want to award it by November 30. So, you know, they come in on the 25th and we need to award on the 30. That's one of the reasons why having that permit in hand is important, because we cannot award if we don't have all the permits. So
Sure.
If they are awarded the contract and they're here, they can hit the ground running the next day on Tuesday, December 1st.
Yeah, no, that's great. I just, you know, I would hate to, well, the concern is that they're sitting there for 2 weeks doing nothing.
Yeah, I don't think that's realistic.
Okay.
Unless they have screwed up royally and the Army Corps is making demands of them to go back and cover certain areas.
No, that's my point, Joe. They could be, if they're finished and they've done what they need to do, they're going to be sitting there idle for 2 weeks because they've already completed.
Yeah, I tell you what, if they finish it up this week on into next, I think that they would probably be content to dog it off over the Thanksgiving to give their crew some time off. They've all been working 24/7. They give them Thanksgiving off and then they come back and hit it right away, starting early December.
Yeah, that'd be great. That was my concern. And the other is the last one, which I'm not sure we've circled back on was Alfred's earlier concern about the bulkhead distances in the piggyback.
Right. So the most recent on that is in the drawings for the piggyback will take the top of the slope will go to the mooring piles along that stretch. No dredging behind the mooring piles between there and that stretch of bulkhead. After we get through this, we're going to circle back with GEI and find out, what would it take in our next round of dredging to get behind there and dredge it. I think the primary concern, and Alfred, correct me if I'm wrong, the primary concern is that it would exacerbate the sedimentation rate.
Well, the problem I have with it is it's the only place you're leaving sediment in that area. I mean, you're going to dig up against the fuel bulkhead.
Yeah.
You're going to dig so that the slope goes under the L pier. And then all along the other bulkhead, we're going to leave all the sediment, the rate that today on a minus tide is 1.5 feet above the water. So you're leaving a sandbar between the mooring piles and the bulkhead. I don't know how that came into the engineering program. I think somebody may have dropped the ball there. But I mean, we're at a point now that we have to move forward.
Yeah, but we can circle back and potentially put that in the rest of Area 1 along with north and south access channels is what I'm thinking we should investigate.
We should, I don't disagree, but I mean, we should certainly find out how we're not dredging a place that was dredged prior. My concern with that is, are we going to end up like the same thing with the South Mooring Basin? Are they going to say we didn't dredge it so we can't anymore?
No, the driver on this is that all the permit drawings portrayed it as, to the moorings. And so to change it now, we would lose all the piggyback. To amend it for next year's dredging is what we're going to look at.
But I think, I don't disagree with you for the permit. I don't think we should, but if you look at the drawings, the edge of the dredge area is the bulkhead. And then where the 3-to-1 slope isn't where the edge of the bulkhead is.
No, on that one cross section, you're correct. The top of the slope is at the mooring pile, and therefore that's the extent of dredging along the bulkhead from the fuel pump over towards the ramp before it turns to the riprap.
So the fuel dock that's in the corner now,
right?
Excuse me, that sits on the bottom at low tide now, is probably still going to sit on the bottom at low tide in the corner if they dredge to that slope line. I mean, we're stuck with what that plan shows.
Right.
I mean, we need water, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But I think somebody dropped the ball at GEI personally, because that line does show the distance, the dredge line, back further, and for some reason we didn't go back to that line.
Chris and I pushed that issue as hard as we could. We were told that they're going by the drawings submitted by the town in 2016. The drawings included input from the Conservation Commission. So we reached a dead end on that, but made it very clear that after it's done, the piggyback, we really want to push for an amendment so that what you're talking about will be included in the Area 1 dredging next fall. Well, we pushed it as hard as we could.
Well, Mike, I guess my question is, GEI should have had, I'm going to stop at this point. See what we can do to move forward. Thank you.
Well, let me just end my comment by saying that I agree with you. I think they should have picked up on that and initiated an amendment prior to now without our having to pick up on it. I think that's a valid point.
Well, I agree with that. And
One of the
that's
questions.
why I agree. I think Kurt's correct that we shouldn't only rely on him for a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. We should look at the bid specifications and make our recommendation.
Yeah, very, very much agree with that.
As a committee.
We'll follow up with Mike Travato to establish a mechanism for disseminating the information.
I mean, looking at the calendar and what was presented up to us today by the town administrator and the assistant, they want to award the contract on the 30th. I mean, we don't have much time. And given the fact that the opening on Wednesday is, as I understand it, a public meeting, then, you know, perhaps the avenue to pursue should be that those in the committee who are interested to show up and look at it. Perhaps look at it with, you know, GEI and us at the table.
Yeah, let me ask a question. Does public meeting, et cetera, would that preclude after the bids are opened, getting them scanned so that we could disseminate them among this committee?
Getting them what?
Scanned.
Scanned. Yeah,
You know,
if they're scanned and posted, then that's fine for an open meeting.
I think, Chris, we need to pursue that now
Yeah.
and pin them down. You know, tell them what the need is that has been expressed and ask them, you know, how they would like to meet that need in a timely fashion.
Yeah, actually, one way to do it, and I don't think it, but would be to tell the bidders, in addition to their hard copy, put a thumb drive in the envelope.
They could probably provide a link, Chris.
Yes, yeah, you're right.
You know, they don't have to do
Yeah.
a thumb drive. They could find a way to get it to us.
No, you're right. After they're open, then a link would be a better solution.
Yeah, it's public information anyway.
Yeah.
Tomorrow morning, Chris, why don't we push for that
Yeah.
and then have an email out to everybody in the afternoon?
Okay. Okay, move on.
Unless somebody has, you know, a better idea.
That sounds right.
No, that sounds good, Joe. That sounds fantastic.
Okay, we'll get on it first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, the link is a good idea. I said thumb drive. At least I didn't say punch cards. Okay, channel dredging. So as I said, I spoke to the field engineer a few days ago when I saw him down there, and he said they were closing in on it and pretty much waiting on the Corps to schedule a survey, which I interpreted to mean the final confirming survey. So that's the status as I know it.
Good.
So are we looking at a date for the next meeting unless anybody has anything else?
Yeah, 2-week cycle puts us on November 30.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody good with that?
Is that when would you want the public hearing? When will everybody be looking at the bid and be finalized and awarded?
We hope to award by the 30th or on the 30th. So to answer your question, the bids come in, they're due 2 p.m. on November 25th. Not to be facetious, but at 2:01 we open them, public.
Yeah.
And
start reviewing right away.
So if we have another meeting on the 30th, we can announce that we've awarded the bid. Might be premature.
It'd be on the cusp.
Okay.
Yeah. But between now and the meeting on the 30th, we expect to provide the information, such as via link, like Kurt suggested.
Yeah.
So we may decide that we should have an interim meeting, but we won't know that until about the 25th or so.
Yeah. And if you feel you need a meeting, just call a meeting. 2 days notice,
Yeah.
48 hours notice. And, if something comes up.
Yes. Okay.
Does that sound good with everyone?
Is there any provision, I understand public meetings, but to review and openly discuss competitive bids, which would be part of a discussion to make recommendations? Is there a provision to do that in the
Yes.
equivalent of executive session?
Yes. Yeah. If you're discussing money and employment and contracts, you go into executive session.
Correct.
Yeah, and strategy with respect to bidders.
Yeah.
So, and that certainly is something where Mike Travato and Maria should be involved. So you can check with their schedule or something too. And maybe schedule that on the 25th.
We're gonna
Over the
pursue
weekend?
that tomorrow morning.
Say that again.
We're going to pursue that with them
Okay.
tomorrow morning
Yeah.
and have an email out to everybody by the afternoon.
Okay. Thank you.
So we good to go?
Okay, just to
for
confirm, we're
November?
good. We're good for November 30 for the normal meeting, correct?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
That was Kurt.
Second.
Yes.
And a
Kevin,
second,
Kevin seconded.
Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
And
Go.
thank
We're
you
gonna
guys
go.
for doing
Thank
it.
you, everybody. Thank
Yeah.
you.
We're coming
Thank you,
down.
everybody. Fantastic.